I killed 8 people. I injected them with insulin and watched them die. The pastor looked at her across the table. She had just confessed to being a serial killer. 8 elderly people, murdered in their beds. He nodded, offered some prayer, and then did absolutely nothing. She told her boyfriend. He shrugged it off. She told a lawyer. No police report. She told her ex-girlfriend. Nothing. She told a student nurse she worked with. Still nothing. 5 different people knew Elizabeth Wettlaufer was murdering helpless seniors in nursing homes. And not a single one of them picked up the phone and called 911, so she kept killing, and killing, and killing. By the time she finally turned herself in, the body count was at least 8 dead. And 6 others she tried to murder. All because the people who knew decided her confessions weren't worth reporting. This is the story of how an entire community failed to stop a serial killer who was begging to be caught. Elizabeth Wettlaufer seemed like the last person who would become a murderer. Born in 1967 in rural Ontario, Canada, she grew up in a deeply religious Baptist household. She went to Bible college and got a degree in religious education and counseling. She wanted to help people, to serve God, to make a difference. In the early 2000s, she went to nursing school and became a registered nurse. And in 2007, at age 40, she landed a job at Care, a long-term care facility in Woodstock, Ontario. She worked the night shift. Her job was simple: dispense medications to elderly residents, make sure they were comfortable, and keep them safe through the night. For the families who put their loved ones in care, Elizabeth seemed like a blessing. She was attentive, she stayed late, she genuinely seemed to care about her patients. But something was wrong inside Elizabeth's mind. Something dark, something she couldn't control. She described it as a red surge, an overwhelming compulsion that would wash over her. And when it hit, she had to kill. On August 11, 2007, just 2 months after being hired, Elizabeth walked into the room, an 84-year-old James Silcox. He was a World War II veteran, a father of 6. He had lived a full, honorable life, and now he was just trying to live out his final years in peace. Elizabeth pulled out a syringe filled with insulin. Silcox wasn't diabetic, he didn't need insulin, but she injected him anyway. Within hours, his blood sugar plummeted. His body went into shock. He slipped into a coma and died. The doctors ruled it natural causes. An elderly man in a nursing home. It happens all the time, right? And Elizabeth? She felt what she later described as a laughing feeling, a rush of euphoria, a sense of power and control she had never experienced before. She was hooked. Over the next 7 years, Elizabeth Wettlaufer became a killing machine. December 2007, Maurice Granat, 84 years old, dead. October 2011, Gladys Millard, 87, dead. November 2011, Helen Matheson, 95, dead. December 2013, Mary Zurawinski, 96, dead. January 2014, Helen Young, 90, dead. March 2014, Maureen Pickering, 79, dead. All of them at Care. All of them on her shift. All of them injected with fatal doses of insulin while they slept. And nobody suspected a thing. Why? Because insulin is the perfect murder weapon. When you give someone too much insulin, their blood sugar crashes. They go into a coma and their heart stops. In an autopsy, it's almost impossible to detect unless you're specifically looking for it. And when an 87-year-old dies in a nursing home, nobody's looking for it. The families grieved. They held funerals. They never knew their loved ones were murdered. But here's where it gets absolutely insane. Elizabeth couldn't keep it to herself. The guilt, the thrill, the twisted need for someone to know what she was doing. It ate at her. So she started confessing. In 2014, she told her boyfriend. She described the murders, the insulin injections, the red surge. He didn't believe her. Or maybe he didn't want to believe her. Either way, he didn't call the police. She told a student nurse who worked with her at Care. The student nurse thought she was exaggerating. Seeking attention. No police report. She told a pastor and his wife. They prayed with her, offered spiritual counsel, but they didn't pick up the phone and call 911. She told a lawyer during a consultation. The lawyer didn't report it. She told her ex-girlfriend. Still nothing. 5 different people. And not one of them thought, hey, maybe I should tell someone that this woman is actively murdering people. So Elizabeth kept working, kept killing. In March 2014, after she murdered Maureen Pickering, Care finally fired her. But not for murder. They fired her for making medication errors. She had given insulin meant for one patient to another patient. The facility had no idea she was doing it on purpose. Even after being fired, the nursing home didn't report her to authorities. They just let her go. And because she still had her nursing license, she got hired at other facilities through temp agencies. And she kept killing. August 2014. Arpad Horvath, 75 years old, at a different facility. Father of two, small business owner. Elizabeth injected him with insulin. Dead. She also attempted to murder several others who survived, including 77-year-old Sandra Towler in 2015, and 68-year-old Beverly Bertram in 2016. But here's the thing that haunts me about this case. Doctors did notice something was wrong. In 2007, after her very first victim, James Silcox, died, the emergency room doctor found the death suspicious and reported it to the coroner. But no autopsy was ever performed. In 2014, another doctor found dangerously low blood sugar levels in one of her victims. Clear evidence of insulin overdose. He reported it to the coroner. Again, no autopsy. The warning signs were everywhere. People knew something was wrong, and the system failed every single time. By 2016, Elizabeth Wettlaufer had left nursing. Not because she was caught. Not because someone finally reported her. She quit because a nursing agency wanted to assign her to work with diabetic children. Kids who needed insulin injections, and even she knew she couldn't control her urges around insulin. Think about that. She had so little faith in her own self-control that she quit rather than risk killing children. She spiraled. Depression, alcoholism, drug abuse. The weight of what she had done was crushing her. In September 2016, she checked herself into a psychiatric facility in Toronto for addiction treatment. And there, during a therapy session, she finally confessed to someone who actually did something about it. She told the staff at the Center for Addiction and Mental Health that she had murdered 8 people and tried to kill several others. This time, the staff immediately contacted the College of Nurses of Ontario and the Toronto Police. On October 25, 2016, Elizabeth Wettlaufer was arrested and charged with 8 counts of first-degree murder. The confession she gave to police was chilling. It lasted over 2 hours. She described each victim in detail. She talked about the red surge she felt before killing. She described the laughing feeling afterward. She said she believed God was telling her to kill, that some of her victims weren't enjoying life anymore, so she was doing them a favor. But investigators knew the truth. This wasn't mercy. This was murder for the thrill of it. When the news broke, families across Ontario were devastated. People who thought their loved ones died peacefully of old age now learned they were murdered by the nurse they trusted. Arpad Horvath Jr., whose father was one of Elizabeth's victims, spoke at her sentencing. "She took away my best friend and my hero," he said. "And I can't forgive that." Elizabeth Wettlaufer didn't fight the charges. She pleaded guilty to all 8 murders, 4 attempted murders, and 2 counts of aggravated assault. On June 26, 2017, she was sentenced to 8 concurrent life sentences with no possibility of parole for 25 years. The judge called her a shadow of death that passed over her vulnerable victims. But the case didn't end there. The government of Ontario launched a massive public inquiry to figure out how this happened. How did a serial killer operate for nearly a decade in regulated nursing homes without being caught? What they found was horrifying. Elizabeth Wettlaufer was hired at Carasent Care without a real job interview. She got a quick tour, was told her duties, and was hired on the spot. No psychological evaluation, minimal background checks. She was suspended multiple times for medication errors, but kept getting her job back. 2 separate doctors reported suspicious deaths to the coroner, but no autopsies were ordered. She confessed to 5 different people, and not one of them contacted authorities. The inquiry revealed systematic failures at every level. Nursing homes prioritized profit over safety. The regulatory system was toothless. Coroners were overwhelmed and underfunded, and people who heard confessions either didn't believe her or didn't want to get involved. The inquiry made over 90 recommendations to prevent this from ever happening again. Stricter hiring practices, better medication tracking, mandatory reporting of suspicious deaths, criminal penalties for people who fail to report confessions of serious crimes. But for the families of Elizabeth's victims, those recommendations came too late. Today, Elizabeth Wettlaufer sits in a maximum security prison in Ontario, where she will spend the rest of her life. She's 57 years old now. But here's what keeps me up at night about this case. How many people had the power to stop her and chose not to? The boyfriend who didn't believe her, the pastor who prayed instead of calling police, the lawyer who stayed silent, the ex-girlfriend who did nothing, the student nurse who thought she was exaggerating. If even one of them had made a phone call, lives could have been saved. This case is a reminder that evil doesn't just happen because of the people who commit it. It happens because good people see something and do nothing. For more shocking female serial killers like this, follow Scream Index. Face the darkest corners of human nature if you dare.